we all sat where you are sitting too once, right? And I didn't always know, I still don't know what I want to do when I grow up. So this is me just letting you know I'm also first generation. I, have parents who work in the fields here in the valley, and it's attainable for really anybody who's really interested, right? UC is a great option. It's where I chose to do my undergraduate, and it really helped develop, I think, my communication skills, my critical thinking skills, but also just opportunity for me to explore, right? And so I hope to share that some of that with you today about just the different opportunities you can have at the University of California in exploring, the pre-med field. So let's go ahead and start at basics, right? Because I've been doing this for a little while, and I think when I meet with folks in the field, right, students, back when we were able to go out and meet with students at college fairs and in the classroom, I had a lot of students.
Tenía muchos que me decían,
And sometimes there's a belief that there's actually a curriculum for like pre-med major, right? That's the major you go into. But really, it's actually an area of interest and it's very broad, right? And all of the different University of California campuses would do a wonderful job at preparing you for this, like I think any sector within this field, but that it's a very broad field. And what it really means when you say you're pre-med is that you're intending on taking specific courses at the university that are going to make you eligible for graduate school in medicine or in health, right? So when you go to college at the University of California, you're in what we call your undergraduate education, right? And that's actually where we prepare you by taking certain courses and following an educational track to then become eligible to apply to graduate school in medicine or in health, right? So I have a graphic a little bit later on in my PowerPoint to kind of give you a visual of what that means. So you don't come straight into the UC to go into medicine as an undergraduate necessarily, right? But that it will prepare you to go through that by having the appropriate courses and support and opportunities for you to gain that experience to be eligible to apply to graduate school. It does mean that you have to be very strong in math and science. And it doesn't mean that that has to be your strongest subject. It just means that that's something that you have to demonstrate a high level proficiency, right? So I know a lot of students who don't necessarily love either math or science, but they really want to go into the field, right? And there's a lot of support at the UC to ensure that you have the support you need to thrive in that subject, right? There's tutorial hours. You can meet with a tutor. You also have office hours. At the UC, office hours are where you would meet with your faculty. All of our faculty are required to have office hours, right? So these are the folks who are teaching you. They are required to have open office hours where you can just walk in and say, I need help. I didn't understand this lecture. I didn't understand this subject. And it's actually something that is very normal and that students do all the time because as a student, our faculty are here to teach you, right? It's their job. And so they have dedicated time outside of their research and whatever else they may be doing to ensure that they're supporting you in understanding the various subjects you're learning from them. And then, of course, it also means that you're going to dedicate time to getting hands on experience, right, prior to applying to graduate school. So during your undergrad, you might volunteer in hospitals, which many of our campuses actually have physical hospitals, right? Like UC San Diego, they have a medical school, right? But there's physical hospitals that are on some of our campuses that you can also do internships in, participating in research labs where you're actually gaining experience, on how to code data, right? Because in the medical field, which is very broad, a big part of it is also research, right? And understanding how to interpret that research. Or working or volunteering at different clinics or in the community. So that's what it means to be pre-med in a very broad sense. Is getting that experience, and that means that's something you're wanting to take on. And like I said, I have several students here with me who's taking on this actually right now because they're current undergraduates at UC Merced who could speak to that experience for you. But why should you choose UC, right? Because you can actually be pre-med and go to any other school in reality, right? But why should you pick UC? So just a few things. The UC mission, we have three pillars, which is teaching, because obviously we're a university where you come to get your undergraduate and graduate degrees. We do research, and we're actually the state of California um, institution for research, right, within higher education. So that is actually our charge, is to do research, and then public service. So the research that we do um, is in large and by large meant to serve the state of California, right? Um, so it's a great opportunity if you go to the University of California, because you're actually being taught by the people who are the pioneers, and often the experts who are doing groundbreaking research in the field of medicine, and you get to be taught by them while they're actually doing this groundbreaking research, and potentially you have the opportunity to also participate in that, right? And that's one of the really unique parts about going to a University of California, is that you have the opportunity to be part of those innovations, right? And so currently the University of California has the most Nobel Prize, right? We have 69 Nobel laureates, right? And in order to earn one of those, you have to actually be um, creating something that is going to benefit mankind. And that's literally the definition of like someone who wins the Nobel Prize, right? Is that they created or developed something that is going to benefit mankind. And there are so many universities across the country and so many different faculty, but to just think about it and realize that at the University of California, if you live in the state of California, you have priority in that institution, right? And that institution has the most Nobel Prize winners across the country. And so that's an opportunity to you, if you choose to come to the UC. We have over 12,000 active inventions, right? Which means we're not only, again, doing research, but we're inventing technology, right, that can be used in the field of medicine. And all of our undergraduate campuses are within the top 100 universities in the nation, right? So it's a great public institution. It's in the state of California. You get priority there, and the folks who are teaching you, they really are actually the experts who are creating the groundbreaking work in the field of medicine for you. As I mentioned earlier, we have 6 medical schools. So we have 9 undergraduate campuses, and 6 of them have medical schools. I, of course, am from UC Merced, and at the moment, we don't have a medical school. But part of the reason why we decided to build UC Merced here in the Central Valley, and I hope that you actually take part in, being part of this initiative, is to bring that level of medical research and access to the Central Valley, right? Right now, when folks get really, really sick, they have to go to UC San Francisco or they have to go to Stanford, because here in the Valley, we don't have that level of research and technology for our family, basically, who are from the Valley, right? They have to travel to those other hospitals that have that level of technology, research, tools, right? And we want to bring that here to the Valley. And that's partially why UC Merced was built here, is that we are working very hard on building our medical school, because we want to bring that level of access to folks here in the Central Valley. So eventually we will have a medical school, but right now we do have a prime program where folks can actually participate in the medical school at UC Davis, but they come back here to the Central Valley to do their rotations, right? So that way they can get all of their training at serving rural communities. Because to be a medical professional and a researcher, right, in the Central Valley is a very different experience than it would be to be one, say, in the Silicon Valley, right? Because our population is so different. And so it's so important that we bring that type of service to the Central Valley, so that our community has access to that, and that the people who are actually servicing our community are people who are very knowledgeable about who are the folks in this community. So just a snapshot at some of our innovations, right? Because like I said, the folks who are teaching you, they are the people who are developing these new technologies. Our hospitals, at like say UC San Francisco, it's not just a hospital where you go to because you're sick, right? There's a reason why when folks get really sick, they go there. And we don't have, that same type of access for them here. And it's because it's also a research hospital. So they're doing groundbreaking research. They're doing trials, right? They're trying to discover cures. For example, did you know the UC developed the hepatitis B vaccine, right? Hepatitis B is probably one of the most common forms of hepatitis, right? And it was developed at the University of California, right? Um, we also, babies, when they're born, if they're premature, the last thing in a baby to develop is actually their lungs, right? Um, it was developed at the UC, the artificial lung surfactant, to treat premature babies, right? So that way their lungs could develop quicker, so that way they have a better chance of surviving. So this is what it means to be pre-med, and this is what it means to go to a University of California campus. It means you have access to the people who are doing all of this. It means you can participate actually in being a part of that research. These are not just practitioners who are, the best doctors out there, but many of them are also the researchers who are not only servicing, but they're also developing the next level of medicine. So that's what it means to go to the University of California. And those are the opportunities available to you if you choose to attend one. I also provided a link here at the bottom if you want to read a publication about all the different innovations within health that the University of California has developed. It's much longer than this little snapshot that I created, but I definitely encourage you to take a look at it. It's very inspiring. There are things that I didn't realize that the UC was actually responsible for developing, inventing, or creating too. And I literally, read about the UC every day. I wanted to do a spotlight about Dr. Gilberto Lopez. As you all probably know, we are in a pandemic, right, globally, and it's affected everyone across the world, no matter where you're at. But here locally in the Central Valley, when COVID-19 started, in March, at least for us, right, last year in 2020, when we all started going remote, right, and working from home and doing distance learning, um, we realized that in the valley, our migrant population was being affected differently. And the information and the knowledge that was being provided right at large really wasn't speaking in such a way that our most vulnerable populations, right, our migrant workers, our first generation, families, right. So one of the initiatives that UC did was we launched a $2 million um, seed foundation fund. Um, and we provided part of that to the health animation project, right? And I know that sounds kind of funny because you're like, we're talking about pre-med, we're talking about health, but this is again another way that you can get into that field, right? So Dr. Lopez actually interviewed over 100 Valley farmers, right? And wanted to know from them what was their conception or information that they had about COVID-19. Did they have access to information, or what was the information that was being spread in their community, right? And it was really important that we have this research, because this research was actually then used to develop a platform that provides information to specifically our large Latino migrant population here in the Central Valley, um, information about COVID-19 that is, one, culturally tailored, right? Two, understandable, and for folks who don't have, like myself, I'm not a doctor, right, like a huge medical background. So it was really important to provide this, right, a resource. And I put the URL on this PowerPoint too for you, because if you have time, I definitely encourage you to take a look at this website, because it's
Vistazo a esta página de web porque las herramientas
and how user friendly it is. And so it's one of the ways that again UC is making sure that we are a public service institution too, right? Is we are investing in our communities, making sure we're taking care of the folks in our community, our Californians. All right. So other access that you have if you attend a University of California campus. So all of our campuses do provide some pre-health advising. At UC Merced, it's literally called pre-health advising. But what that is it means we have designated folks who are experts in supporting students in getting into medical school. They know all the requirements that it takes to get into medical school. They understand the pathway. They're well aware of, what the current stats are. I work in the land of admissions, and so even for high school students who are coming to the University of California, right? Every year it changes based off of the demographic of the students who are coming in. So our pre-health advisors are those experts before medical school and pre-health careers, right? And so their job is really to make sure that you are the most competitive you can be at the University of California to jump right into the field or into the graduate school of your choice within the field of health, right? So this is a resource that's available to you. I gave a little graphic here of just the level of chemistry and physics and math that students do have to complete at the University of California in order to be eligible for medical school, right? So again, choosing to be pre-med means that you do have to work and making sure you're doing well in your math and your science. And there's ways to prepare while you're in high school too, that I can share in a little bit. All right, so supporting and preparing students for medical school or public health, right? So other things that we do is we all have a career center, right, where we can support you with test prepping, right, through Kaplan, Princeton Review, crackers, and there's more. But we often offer a lot of these free services for students who are interested in going into, graduate school, whether if it was even business or professional school or medical school, right? Because you have to pass the MCAT or take the GRE. And so you have these other tests that you have to take while you're in your undergrad to prepare you for graduate school. And so just like while you're in high school and you have a career center whose job is to help you get to college, right? When you get to college, there's resources to help you get to the next level because you have to apply for that next level too, right? And so there are resources that we provide, whether if it's actual like test preps where we might do like a boot camp on the weekend, or there's actual programs that you can actually log into and so forth. We also have advisors who are again experts in these specific fields, right? Who can help you understand what you need to do to do better for your tests and so forth. We provide application support. So again, just like in high school, when you're getting ready to apply for college, you have your counselors who help you. We have professionals who will support you in writing your statement of purpose because you have to explain why you're interested and what you've done to prepare yourself to go into the field of medicine, right, or public health. And then also helping you understand how to ask for that letter of recommendation, right? At the university, it's a little bit different because in high school, there's you have the classrooms are actually smaller, right? So there's sometimes only 25, 30 students in a classroom. But at the university, sometimes you're one student in 600, right? There's 600 people in the classroom with you, actually. And so the faculty may not actually know you. Um,
1 second, sorry about that. You might need to
oh,
reach.
no, that's okay.
That's
Um,
my fault. I'm sorry.
there we go. Okay, I got it. All right. It's all right. There's nothing like Zoom, right?
Yeah,
Because
when we're back on, we're good.
yeah, no worries. But so back to where I was on the application, right? So there's folks who are going to help you um, learn how to ask for that letter of recommendation because when you're applying for a professional school, medical school, um, they're looking for very specific things in your letter of recommendations that they want the person talking about you knowledgeable about, right? And so part of having that pre-health advisor is while you're in your undergrad, they're going to say, hey, Kia, you need to go do some internship, you need to gain some knowledge in this area, right? You need to learn more about research or so forth. So you need to get into research. But part
de
of
investigación.
to do that is so that way when it's time
Así que para hacer esto es un intento.
you have very good letters of recommendation from people who know you. And imagine how powerful it is to get a letter of recommendation from a faculty member who is doing groundbreaking research, right, in the field of health, who can say, yeah, he is great. She knows all about the most up-to-date like medical tools, technology. She helped me in in assessing or developing this tool. That would be amazing to put on your medical school application to actually, and it comes from an expert, right? Who is recognized by that actual field that you're trying to go into. those are the people who teach you, and those are the people we want you to get your letters of recommendation from. And you have access to that if you go to the University of California, right? And then, of course, they'll help you with your application review. I think that's probably the most nerve-wracking part for students is before you hit submit, right? Just having someone review it and making sure that you spelled everything correctly and so forth. So we will support you with that. And then for medical school and often for graduate school, there's an interview, right? Which is also really nerve wracking because it's not like an interview for a job. It's an interview to see if you're a good fit for their program. So it's a little bit different. And so we have our, career coaches who will help you with practice interviews, who will give you tips, who will also invite experts from that field to come and do those mock interviews with you. So that way, when it's time for you to really have your real interview, you're ready because you've done it several times. You go in prepared, and you know that you will, talk about all the right things because you've already gone all that experience in your undergraduate experience. All right, so first steps first, though, right? Because all of you are in high school or in middle school. So, first step, you have to be eligible out of high school to go to the university, right? And so when students go to high school, they have to take a specific curriculum in order to be eligible for the UC. But you can also go to the community college and then you can choose to transfer. And one of our student panelists today is also a transfer student. So she can talk to you about how that's a great option too. And it's very viable. If you choose to go to community college first, you can still go into the field of health and medicine, right? It's all about preparation. So you're going to go from high school, make sure you're eligible, make sure you're working with your counselors, your career centers. And then from there, once you get to college, you have to do the same thing. You still have to do well in your academic classes. You still have to make sure that you're building those connections with our faculty. You have to make sure you're volunteering, doing internships in the right field, right? Now it's not just about community service, but it's about getting the right experience to be competitive so you can go into graduate school. And then you apply to graduate school, right? And so that can be medical school or professional school. And it takes a while. I know sometimes because many of you are really young, you're like, that's going to take forever. Let me tell you, time will pass either way. You might as well let it pass doing something that you're really passionate and that you love. So that's what I always tell folks because time passes either way. Um, might as well put it into something that you really want a great career in. So what does it mean to be eligible out of high school as a freshman? So you have to complete all of your A through G courses in high school, right? So you have to take your 2 years of history, your 4 years of English, 3 years of math. But if you are pre-med, I'm telling you, take that fourth year. Take that fourth year. If you can take 5 years, do it, right? Because the more prepared you are in your math and in your science, uh, the better you're going to be when you come to the University of California. At the UC, we don't actually have remedial math or English courses actually. So you have to come in at the right level. So I definitely always encourage students who are interested in going into the field of medicine that they come in with at least that fourth year of math, at least that third year of science. Because as you saw in the flow chart I had shared earlier, there's a whole lot more math and science you're going to be taking when you get with us if you're interested in going into the health field, right? So the better prepared you are out of high school, the better prepared you'll be while you're in college to go to medical school. At minimum, you must have a 3.0 GPA within your A through G courses, right? So again, keeping B or better grades is always what we would encourage students to ensure they do. And then you would apply by November 30th of your senior year. So no matter where you're at, if you're in 7th grade right now, or you're a rising senior, November 30th of your senior year is when you would submit your application. And there's lots and lots of resources. I don't know the future, so I can't tell you if by November 30th of this year will be in person or will still be virtual, but I can tell you we will be here to support you. So all of the University of California's have been providing Zoom appointments, Zoom webinars on how to apply, to walk you through the application, to meet with you one-on-one, to do that check with you, because we know, especially in this virtual environment, that's one of the things that is unfortunately not as accessible, is that students can't have access to people every day to get support, right? And so I want you to know, if this is coming into your senior year, we will be here to support you if we're still virtual. If we go back in person, we will still be here to support you. So definitely reach out. All right, so now it's time to choose, right? So let's say it's your senior year, you've done great, you completed your A through G, you have a great GPA, and now you're ready to apply. Well, which one do you apply to? My opinion, apply broadly, apply to all 9 if you can, but if you can't, some things to consider. Major. Now, all of us can prepare you for pre-health, so don't let that be a deciding factor. All of us have access to that whole list of curriculum and courses that you must take to become eligible for medical school, right? So what you're really looking at is, right, if there's a specific area that you're really interested in studying as well, right? One of our panelists here today is actually a psychology major. He's interested in going to pre-health, right? How does that make sense? Well, I'll tell you, a lot of times folks think that in order to be pre-health, you have to major in biology, right? And if you're one of those students who doesn't love science, right, but you want to go into the field of medicine, you can actually major in something else. And you can still take all of those courses that are required for medical school. And you can do all of that still at the University of California. So you can get a bachelor's degree in something that you love, and you can still take all the right courses to be eligible to go into medical school. And in fact, it will make you more competitive, because let me tell you, they don't want to admit all just bio students, because the reality of it is, to serve people, people are diverse. And especially if you're going to serve people in the field of medicine, your patients are going to come from all walks of life. Imagine how much more competitive you are if you are a Spanish major and you took all of those required courses for medical school. Spanish is like the second language in California, right? And so if you have that area of expertise and that
Siendo el segundo lenguaje en California, te vuelves muy competitivo por tener
competitive in medical school. So those are just some things to think about when you're determining your major. Size, obviously, right? UC Merced being the newest University of California campus, we are currently the smallest campus, right? We are actually set to be the largest someday, but at the moment we're still the smallest. So many will say that we're more like a private liberal art campus feel because we're smaller, but you have access to all the same things. Or maybe you want to go to the biggest campus you can find, right? So maybe you want to go to UCLA, right? At any point in time, there are more people walking on the UCLA campus than any other campus in this country. That's a fact, actually. So if you want to be where it's busy, if you like to see lots of skateboarders, bike riders, people giving tours, UCLA is a huge campus and it's beautiful, and there's lots of people on that campus, and some people thrive in that environment, right? They don't need all the attention on them. They prefer to just do their work and get done with it. That might be a wonderful campus for you. I really encourage that hopefully this pandemic is over soon and that all of you have an opportunity to actually visit our different campuses, because I am a firm believer. I was, again, a local student, went to Sunnyside High School. I was a part of the UC Scholar Program where they took me on field trips. That was how I learned about the UC. And in that experience, that was where I fell in love with UC Santa Cruz. I'm a firm believer that you'll fall in love with the right campus in the first 15 minutes. Okay. If you're going to walk on that campus and you're just going to know. You're going to know because you're going to see the campus culture. You're going to see the different, just activities students are doing. So if you can, go visit the campuses. Obviously, location also, dictates size, right? All of us are located across the whole state of California, as far south as San Diego and as far north as UC Davis, and then everything in between. And then opportunities, right? So some things are the same across all the campuses. For example, you can do pre-med at all of us, right? You can study abroad at all of us. It's actually one study abroad program, and you can do it at any one of our campuses, right? You can do research, but what might vary is the type of research, because in order to be an expert in a field, you have to be the only person doing that research, right? And so our faculty across all 9 of our campuses, it will actually including UC San Francisco, they are doing research but it's actually different, right? Because they actually have to go and compete for funding in order to do those different researches. So the opportunity is that you can do research, but what type of research, uh, who you might be mentored by, right, will vary from campus to campus. Other opportunities might be different too, as well as like different sports team if you're really interested in like football, right? At this moment, we don't have a football team at the UC Merced campus. We have a great women's basketball team, though, if that's something you're interested in. But you might want to look at those different opportunities as well as you're choosing the campus for you to apply to. All right, so I have talked enough. I would actually like to transfer it over now to my amazing panelists who are going to introduce themselves to you, and then we're going to open it up for Q&A. So we'll go ahead and get started with Miriam.
Sorry, I was muted. Hello, everybody. My name is Miriam. I'm actually from Las Vegas. I think me and Panas, I'm from Las Vegas. I don't know why it says Atwater, but I'm from Las Vegas. I'm majoring in public health and I have a minor in psychology. So a little bit about myself is that, first of all, I am a transfer student. So if there's any students out there that are planning to go to a community college and then transfer it over to a UC, I can relate. There's many different ways you can, or many routes you can go to the pre-med or pre-health field. So again, a couple of things I am involved in is the Public Health Society, the Global Medical Training, and UNICEF, and an NCPC intern at UC Merced. And yeah, I'll transfer it on to Derek to talk about a little bit about himself. And then I'm sure later on we're going to be explaining a little bit more about ourselves, what we do, the stuff we're involved in here on our campus, and things like that.
Hello, everyone. Can everyone see me? My camera was doing something a little weird earlier.
Yes, we can see you.
Alrighty. Hi, everyone. My name is Derek. I'm from Roseville, California. And if nobody really knows where that is, it's kind of closer to Sacramento. So I live around the Sacramento area, and I'm also a fourth-year psychology major. So I'm just about to graduate from UC Merced. A couple of things that I'm involved in here on campus. I'm involved in Phi Delta Epsilon. So at a lot of the UC campuses, you're going to notice Phi Delta Epsilon there. It's basically a co-ed medical fraternity. So like if you think of like a fraternity, you think of like the movies and stuff, but it's nothing like that, I promise. So Phi Delta Epsilon has been like one of the main things that I've kind of invested myself in college, but it's more of like it helps with like professional networking and medical development and such. So I think it's like a really good opportunity in whatever UC campus you go to. And a few other things I'm involved here on campus is the Health Communications and Interventions Lab. So that's a psychological research lab that is on the UC Merced campus. And to talk a little bit more about research, it's a really important thing for a lot of medical school applications. And I know Kia kind of touched on that a little bit before, but it's kind of like an unspoken rule that you probably should have some sort of health or some sort of research under your belt. And then moving on, I was the president of Breaking the Stigma, which is another club that was on campus. I was actually the founder of that club that basically provided resources and advocated for unsheltered populations. I'm also a tour guide, so I give tours on campus as well. I was also Global Brigades, so that's like a global medical training. I'm sorry for like this long list. I didn't realize how big of a mouthful it would be, but there's basically like a lot of different health programs that are on the UC Merced campus and a lot of the other UC campuses as well. You're going to see that in a lot of other campuses. But yeah, that's kind of like an overview. Sorry, Pana, I'm going to hand it over to you.
No, you're fine. Hey everyone, my name is Pana. I am a third-year bio major. I am a part of the Muslim Student Association. I'm also student ambassador here on campus. Also, I was gonna enter into a lot of clubs, but then the pandemic hit, so I couldn't enter into as much clubs as I would like. However, I am in the Pre-Med Central. It is a club geared more towards the pre-med and pre-health life here in the Central Valley, which I think is super duper cool because I do like the Central Valley. I am a local here. So with time, I'm just going to move right on to with the questions. So Kia, you want to take it away?
Awesome, thank you. I'm actually gonna ask Paula if we have any questions in the chat or Q&A.
So we do not right now. There was a question earlier, but Derek kind of answered that about what is your favorite UC campus, if you have a favorite. However, I will invite the students to go ahead and ask any questions now that you might want to ask. So please feel free to add them either into the chat or you can raise your hand and we can go that way. But if you place them in the chat, I can read them out and you can ask these questions either of our presenter, Ms. Kiatan, regarding UC Merced specifically, or anything that she presented on, or feel free to ask any questions to the panelists that are here.
We do have a question in the chat from Lisa. She would like to ask Miriam, did minoring in another class add more work to your day-to-day schedule? Would you recommend getting a minor?
Well, for me, in my case, I transferred from Merced College to UC Merced, so I was majoring in psychology at Merced College, so that kind of helped. So it didn't really add a whole much load for both adding the minor and then major public health. So it didn't. I mean, for my case, it wasn't that much of a big load. It's very manageable. A lot of students I know they do add even a double major, so it's manageable.
Excellent. Thank you so much. We have another question here is, why is math so important to pre-med?
So I would say math is definitely important to pre-med because math and chemistry low-key do kind of go hand in hand. So there's going to be a lot of chemistry in the medical field and in the health career field, like in general. However, I know for a bio major, the highest you have to take is calculus 2. And it is hard. Calculus is pretty hard, but medical schools really do look at your calculus and your math grades. So I would definitely say, as like to just kind of put it out there, if you do feel like in high school, I know the requirement is for the A through Gs, it's 3 years in math. But if you feel like, you know, you're kind of struggling in math, you don't really understand it that much, definitely opt for the 4 years in math if you could. And if you do choose UC Merced, we do have a bunch of facilities here on campus. I know whenever I was taking calculus 2, I definitely went to the math center all the time. However, I did take it whenever the pandemic just hit. So like midway, like I couldn't really go to the math center because there were, at the time, I don't think there were any like virtual hours. So I did go to office hours. If I could encourage you guys to do anything, if you're really struggling in math or if you just don't like math, definitely go to office hours because the teachers make it super, I wouldn't say super fun, but they make it to the point where you understand it, if that makes sense.
I probably would just add, I think part of why it's also really important is if you think about your doctors, right, they prescribe you medicine and, you know, surgeons, you know, when they're operating on you, they have to decide how much drugs to give you if you're coding or something, right? All of that is math, right, and science, because they have to think about how much weight, you know, how much do you weigh and how old are you? And if you have any preconditions and how drugs interact with each other. And so kind of to Pana's point, which is like, it's a lot of chemistry, but it's also, it's a lot of math, right? Because you have to calculate those things.
Yeah, to add on to that, math is also super important because I actually looked into this because I actually really hate math. So trying to learn how to do math was kind of like a struggle to me. But math is super important also because like in physics, a lot of cardiologists have to use physics, and physics is completely math. Like if you ever taken physics, it's going to be strictly a math class, and they kind of trick you into thinking that it's something else. But math is super important in things like, as Kia said, medications and prescriptions and such, and like kind of like measuring out with the weight. But there's also like how small are your veins, and like how much drugs do we have to give you because of that, and how much space do we need to fit the catheter into your veins and stuff like that. So even through like physics and like there's math everywhere, or there's math found everywhere in the medical field. That's why they kind of like make you do math. And it's very easy to think like, oh, I don't need math for like college or like for medical school and such, but it's actually super important when it comes to things that happen in the medical field.
So there's just a lot of response to that math question. It does seem to be a challenge. It's always a challenging subject for many students. So a lot of suggestions in the chat of just continuing to reach out for help and going from there. So we do have a question regarding, or to any of you, what persuaded you to choose UC Merced?
I can start it off. So the reason why I selected UC Merced, apart from all the different opportunities, because it's a new school, you know, there's a lot of research undergrad students can do. At UC Merced, they have the UROC program. So this is, I believe, the only UC that lets undergrad students perform their own research or develop or create their own research question if they want to partner with, you know, professors and things like that. It gives students the opportunity to get a little bit hands-on on research. But for me, I selected UC Merced mainly because the major and the opportunities. But I liked public health because it's a blend between like the social sciences and the, you know, it's a mixture of both science and then what you can do to prevent some, like for example, the pandemic. You need to do like prevent things from happening, and then the next step, you know, go to the doctors and things like that. But because of the major public health and the opportunities, and again, I am a transfer student, so this was one of the best schools that gave transfer students a lot of help, and it was a really smooth transition, so it was really helpful for me. And the location, I really like the location.
Thanks, Miriam. I know that the other two could probably answer too, but with respect for time, there's a couple of questions that are additional coming through, and I'd really like to move on to those to maybe get them addressed. So there's a question out of the, sorry, they're moving. There's a question about how to apply for a UC campus and the requirements. And then also, out of all career paths that you could have chosen, why did you choose pre-med? So maybe you guys can, one of you can address those.
I'll take the admissions one first, and then I'll yield to them because I know we're short on time. So how to apply. So it's one application for all 9 undergraduate campuses. And so you apply online in your senior year. And I'm going to ask one of my co-panelists to put in the link in the chat for everyone to get the link to the UC application, but it's the same place you go every year. Applications always due November 30th of your senior year. And the requirement for eligibility is a 3.0 GPA in your A through G courses, right? Specifically looking at your 10th and 11th grade years, those are the 2 most critical. And then just that you completed your A through G course requirement. But as we have been mentioning, if you're interested in going into pre-health or pre-med, we really want you to take that 4th year of math and additional science if you have time. Thank you, Derek, for putting that in there.
And then I guess I'll answer the question about why pre-med and not like any other path. I think throughout your life, you kind of go through different types of experiences. And like, that's some advice that I offer to all of you before college starts. So I highly recommend trying everything, like every new experience that you can get your hands on. I would recommend just doing it. Even if you think you don't like it, I think even trying it out once will make you realize like, I don't like it. So just like go about your life and just kind of like do anything and to figure out like what kind of things you like. For me, that was medicine, because like from my personal life back in high school and stuff, I realized that there wasn't enough resources for Asian American students who are a part of the LGBTQ plus community. And I saw like a lot of very horrible things happening in the health field regarding the community that I'm a part of. So like I'm a bisexual Asian male. And there's a lot of things that kind of happen in between the community that was just very horrible, and that I think I could personally change by going into medicine. So one of the driving things that kind of had me like pick the pre-med path was when I was actually joining Phi Delta Epsilon. They made us do like a service project, which at the time I thought was kind of a drag, but I went out to do it, and we were like, you know, feeding unsheltered people. And I just heard a story where that really changed my life, where like this person is being basically stigmatized. And before that, they like a lot of different types of assumptions were made about them. And I think that's something that really limits healthcare, because stigmatization can actually take away healthcare from many, many people. And that's something that made me kind of dedicate myself to the pre-medical path, to kind of destroy stigma and to provide healthcare to a wide variety of people. And that's kind of like what drives me to become a doctor, rather than like, I wanted to be like an architect at some point, but like that's another thing. It was a lot of math too, and I don't like math. So there's a lot of different factors that kind of contribute to the pre-med path.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Derek. I appreciate just the honesty and the reason why you went into pre-med. We are very short on time, but I did want it. There's a couple more questions. I don't know that we'll get to them all, but Ms. Kia, would you be willing to address Brisa's question, because she did get into UC Merced and was offered the Fiat Lux program. And she was wondering if you had more information about the program and what it does and how it affects academics. So for those that might be applying in future, could you speak to that really quick? And then hopefully, if you're a panelist and you can kind of read through and see any other questions, maybe you guys could answer in the chat while Kia's answering this last and final question.
Absolutely. Well, first, congratulations, okay? Being admitted to any University of California campus is a feat, and you should celebrate it because it means you are one of the top students in the state of California. The Fiat Lux program is our support program at UC Merced to ensure that our first generation students are going to have all the support they need to be successful. There is a living and learning community that's a part of it if you'd like to participate in that, where you are living in a community on campus with students who share your similar background, so you can create a community of support. You are assigned a program advisor who ensures that you are taking the right courses. If you aren't doing well, you can check in with them and they'll make sure they refer you to the right resources. As many of my panelists have mentioned, tutorial, office hours, advising. We have psychological and counseling for students, just a plethora of different types of resources. And your Fiat Lux program coordinator, they're your one-stop person who's going to make sure we support you in being successful at our campus. So thank you so much. I know we're running out of time, so I do want to give you all my contact information, so that way you can contact us if you have any more questions. Feel free to shoot me an email. And I will do my best to answer all of your questions. Or if you had a question for one of our panelists, I can forward it to them so that way they can answer it for you as well.
Thank you so very much. I would just like to give a huge shout out to Kia for coming in and spending your Saturday with us and presenting about this, the amazing opportunities that UC offer. And thank you to your panelists for you guys giving up a Saturday morning to come and share about your experience at the UC as well, and as pre-med students. So I'm going to hand it over very briefly to Ms. McKenna Serpa, who is our room host, to give instructions as we move forward into our next session. So thank you. Feel free to throw in a thank you to our panelists guys in the chat, but you guys can start to see all the thank yous and the gratitude for you guys coming and sharing. So thank you again. Ms. McKenna.
Hi, everyone. So thank you for attending our first session. Go ahead and refer to the program that you were given for your next session. We'll be moving everyone into the waiting room so that we can prepare our next presenter. But thank you all for joining. I'm going to drop it in the chat where you can find the program, and we will see you soon. Thank you.